Delivering great tasting product to your customers is important. Saving energy, space, and improving operational efficiencies is good for your bottom line. A perfect choice for convenience retailers, Adande Refrigeration's patented modular units deliver so many efficiencies it's no wonder brands such as Sheetz and GetGo are installing these temperature-stable, hold-to-cold fridges across their U.S. food courts. When it comes to refrigeration, convenience is at the very heart of Adande Refrigeration. Learn how you can excel in food service, save time, space, and energy with Adande Refrigeration at adande.co.uk or adande.com. Professionals in the know, choose Adande. You're listening to Shop Talk Live, the podcast, brought to you by Global Convenience Store Focus. Shop Talk Live is a unique video and podcast series featuring senior retail executives in the global convenience, fuels, and mobility retail industry, hosted by Dan Munford and Carolyn Schnare. Welcome to Shop Talk Live, the podcast. In this episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing Robert Hampton, Vice President of Technology Services and Innovation at Jackson's Food Stores in the U.S. Along with my co-host, Vision Group Network co-founder Roy Strasburger, we talked about technology strategy and implementation at Jackson's. Jackson's Food Stores, headquartered in Idaho, was founded in 1975 as a single-service gas station and has grown to be a nationally recognized chain of over 230 convenience stores in 6 western U.S. states. They also own and operate Jackson Energy and Capital Distributing. With a wide geographic distribution of stores, Robert's team has a lot to keep on top of. In this episode, we discussed the complex nature of technology as both an operational necessity and for efficiency. I encourage you to watch the full Shop Talk Live video interview in episode number 57 at our website, globalconveniencestoreFocus.co.uk. Welcome to Shop Talk Live. I'm happy to have back with me today my co-host, Roy Strasburger, founder of the Vision Group. Hey, Roy.
Hi, Carolyn. Great to be here. Thanks for having me back.
So I'm really excited to have with me today for today's episode, where we're going to be talking with a leading retailer hailing from Idaho, which is in the Western United States. And we're going to hear all about the company and their technology strategy. So I would like to introduce Robert Hampton, who is the Vice President of Technology Services and Innovation for Jackson Food Stores. Hey, Robert.
Hi, thank you.
If you don't mind, would you be happy to tell us all about Jackson's? Now, I know you have a rather large operation with many different businesses out in Idaho and around in the region. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about Jackson's.
Sure. So Jackson's Food Stores were a vertically integrated business. We were founded in 1975. We're based here in Boise, Idaho. We're one of the top 5 privately held companies in Idaho, have about 5,000 employees, and revenue exceeding $4 billion. I'll talk a little bit about each of the companies you see here. First off would be Jackson Food Stores. That's our operation. We have about 300 locations in 7 western states. We're branded Shell and Chevron, and we've grown primarily through acquisition, but we've also had a lot of new to industry stores, or NTIs as they're called. And we're recognized as an innovator in the retail convenience industry. I want to talk a little bit about Jackson Energy. So this is our fuel distribution company. And so we support about 1,300 locations. About 300 of those are our own stores. And then we've got a number of lessee dealers, multi-site operators, and commission dealers. And you can see there on the map, those are all the locations that we serve in the Western United States. And last year, we distributed almost 1.1 billion gallons of fuel. And you can see the breakdown in wholesale and retail, and also the brands that we support. With Jackson Energy, we have Jackson Energy Logistics. We have 93 transports with 185 drivers on staff. We pull fuel from about 58 different loading terminals. And we drove almost 11 million miles in 2022. Also, another part of our business that's not well known is we have what's called the Jackson Jet Center. And this is, we have 2 private terminals, one here in Boise and the other one's down in Phoenix at the Sky Harbor Airport. We own and operate a number of jet and turboprop aircraft. We have charter service with in-house pilots. We do de-icing, refueling, ground service here in Boise. And interestingly, we have a parts warehouse, which we opened a couple of years ago, where we're selling aviation and aircraft parts worldwide. So that's been a growing business for us as well. Down in Arizona, we have 12 large format locations. They're anywhere from 3 to 5 acres. They do have a convenience store on the property, but it's a large car wash. There's a tunnel wash and also hand wash. But we do have ancillary auto services available. We do glass, alignment, express lube, things like that. In the pictures, you can see get an idea of some of the properties, and that one down on the lower right is one of the waiting areas where we have convenience products. I want to talk a little bit about Capital Distributing. That's been in business about 40 years as of this past March. In 2019, we outgrew our facility and we built a brand new location about 20 miles west of Boise. It was 250,000 square feet on 53 acres. So we had plenty of opportunity to grow it if needed. Originally, we had a 5-year plan where we said, this will get us through the next 5 years and then we can add on to the facility. Shortly after we moved in, about 2 years later, we outgrew it. And so we've already added another 67,000 square feet, which opened this past March. Capital has about 800 customers that we supply. So with Jackson Energy and Capital Distributing, we've got the fuel and the grocery. And so we're distributing to our own sites. And so anytime Jackson's grows, both of those companies grow as well. But as I mentioned earlier, in addition, they have a number of independent customers that we serve. And I'll touch on the independents a little bit later and how we interact with them. But it could just be the mom and pop shop down the street, or a single site operator. And so we might bring their grocery products to them as well as their fuel. And then I'd like to also add that in Capital, we built a kitchen and bakery. We basically have a food plant out at the new distribution center. And that's where we make our own food products, such as breakfast burritos, sandwiches, things like that. And you'll see some pictures coming up of that. But that allows us to supply our own sites with our own private label products. And that's been going really well for us as well. I'd like to talk a little bit about Jackson Bevco. So about 2 years ago, we purchased the 5th largest tobacco chain in the country, and that was called Tobacco Connection. They actually have 3 brands. Big Smoke and Bad Habits is their other one. They had a distribution warehouse, but we've subsequently integrated that into Capital Distributing. They primarily supply tobacco and alcohol, and there's no fuel. It's much smaller locations. They do have drive-throughs. And so interestingly, a lot of business goes through the drive-through. So at one location, I was told it's about 80% drive-through business in the location. They do have a very loyal customer base. And they, I've spent some time in there just kind of observing, and those folks really get to know the customers. Those customers come in every day. And they get to know, the staff gets to know the customers, and they have a great relationship with them. And so having this additional business kind of gives us a different customer base, if you will, because it's not the same customer that traditionally goes to a Jackson's. And they have other products that Jackson's doesn't carry. As an example, most of the stores have a humidor, and so they sell a lot of cigars in the stores, and we just don't have that at Jackson's. And so I'd also like to talk a little bit about, we do have 2 joint ventures. One is with Shell, and it's called PacWest Energies, and it's out in the West Coast. And so Shell had some retailers that were getting out of the business. We went in with them, like Shell does with a number of other retailers across the country. I believe they have 12, 15 or so JVs. And so we have a JV with them. It has about 100 stores in it. And then our other one is Extra Mile. You may have heard of that brand. That's primarily with Chevron. And so Chevron, it's their higher end sites. And so there's an example of one there. That's a Jackson's that we've made Extra Mile. So Extra Mile is a franchise operation. And so we went in with Chevron, and we're 50-50 owners of the Extra Mile brand. We do all the IT for them. We do the accounting, finance, HR, things like that. And we help them grow the brand. And when we started, it was about 750 sites. And now I believe it's up to about 1,100. This has been over the last 5 years or so. And so that's really been growing, and a lot of great things going on there. And you're starting to see that move across the country. They were only in 3 sites when we started with them, and now I think they're in 7 or 8 sites. And so we've recently opened some sites down in Alabama and Mississippi. And so one other company that I wanted to talk about that's part of Jackson's family is part of Capital Distributing, and that's a software company called Supply Logistics Solutions. And that's the warehouse management system that we use out at Capital. And that was originally part of McLean. And so we bought that from Drayton McLean, and we went in with a couple of other suppliers across the country. And so we're part owners of this software company. They're based in Temple, Texas, near McLean, their headquarters. And we're the managing partner of that. And so we handle all the IT. And that's a great group of people. And we're happy to have that so we can modify the warehouse management system for our needs. And so that works out really well. And then here you're just seeing some photos of some of our different stores. A number of them were acquired, but like I said, we've done a lot of NTIs as well.
Well, Robert, that's really fascinating, and it shows that Jackson's is not just a convenience store company. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of things all over the western part of the United States. So it's very impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you, Roy.
Yes, an incredibly diverse portfolio of things to keep up with. It keeps you busy, I imagine.
For sure.
So, Robert, I know you've talked a little bit about what Jackson's has been doing, and how are you? Let's kind of jump into the technology part of it. How are you using the technology on the distribution, logistics? I know you said you're running a lot of the IT for other people. Is it programs that you're developing yourself, or are you using other packaged software and working on the distribution side?
Yeah, good question, Roy. Where possible, we do try to buy off the shelf. And specific to the distribution center, you asked about that. I did mention SLS, Supply Logistics Solutions. So if you will, it's kind of off the shelf, but since we're part owner in the company, we have the ability to customize it. But we've partnered them with other people off the shelf software in the industry, such as ProCat. And many of you might have heard of ProCat. They do load right, ship right, tax right, things like that, a lot for distribution centers. And so we've been able to take the SLS software, integrate it with ProCat, and modify it to suit our needs. And then part of, you asked about is, are we doing some custom work? And the answer is yes. When we built the new distribution center, we realized that we needed to track a lot of different, and there's a picture of it right there. We needed to track a lot of metrics and statistics so that we could, incentivize the pickers who are in the warehouse picking the product. And so we put, I think the number's close to 60 TVs, and there's a picture of the food plant, food production. But we've customized and built in-house what we call, it's a DOID basically, and it's a data display. And it shows things like pick rate per hour, and it incentivizes the pickers because it shows who's picking the fastest, pieces per hour. It shows, when you're loading the trucks, it shows how many totes are going in the truck, so you can get an idea of how close you are to being done, where the truck's going, things like that. And like receiving, so in the receiving area, there's a TV, and it shows all of the expected trucks to come in and what products are coming in and things like that. And so having all this information all over the facility, it's been really helpful. Like I said, it incentivizes to the workers, they get bonused off of certain metrics. And so that's all stuff we did in-house. We wrote all that and integrated it to ProCat and the SLS software.
So, Robert, I mean, with all these, you could go in very great specific on everything, whether it's distribution or store. And I wanted to ask a little bit, I guess, focusing initially on the retail side, if that works, and then branching out a little bit further to keep up. Obviously, you need to keep the lights on with technology. Those are the basic ones. Make sure things work. But beyond that, there's a lot of new innovations coming out. And without sharing all your secrets, what are some of the big innovative projects that you've been focusing in a little bit on either now or in the near future?
Well, sure. With innovation, we try to focus it in really three places. Like, is there something that can increase revenue? Can it increase EBITDA? And can it increase productivity? And when I say productivity, I mean that for both our store employees, but also for the customers. As we all know, the folks watching this video, we're in the convenience industry, and so we're selling convenience, right? And so how can we make the customer more productive? And so we found, like with innovation, sometimes, innovation doesn't necessarily have to involve IT. And I'll give you an example of that. How can I make, I sit in and listen to the regional managers and operations folks, and I'm listening to pick up on things that are problem areas for them. And, one of the things we do with our sites is focus on cleanliness of the store, right? And so, we know that people, go and clean the floors, and having a clean floor and a clean environment makes people want to buy fresh food products. So hearing that, gosh, we spend a lot of time cleaning. Well, I happen to run across a product that's an automated floor scrubber. And you set it up and it can scrub the floors 4 times a day, every day of the month, right? And so it's a subscription-based product. It's kind of cool. And that frees up, that makes our store employees more productive because they don't have to focus on cleaning the floor. The floor is getting cleaned and they're not worried about it. And so that's an idea, an innovation idea that really has nothing to do with IT. I mean, the product itself doesn't even talk to a wireless. It just goes straight out to the internet. It's got a MiFi card or a wireless card in it. So that's kind of an example of how we're looking at innovation, and it doesn't necessarily have to be some elaborate IT project. Here's a device that's standalone. Just turn it loose and let it clean the floors and make everyone around it more productive.
So, Robert, that's really interesting, and I've heard of floor scrubbers in larger locations like Walmarts or supermarkets, but you're finding it economical at the convenience store side, size type program. I take it. And do you feel like it helps with your slip and fall incidences and keeping the floors clean?
Yeah. So we have not. That's an example of something that I found. We have not tried it yet, but according to the company, it does, because it picks up debris, and it keeps the floor clean, and like spills, as you mentioned, it can clean those up. So certainly, and if something happens, if there is a spill, the employee can go and start the device, and they can go scrub that area right away. Okay. with some manual intervention. So that is a selling point of the product. Yeah. But just to be clear, we haven't started it yet. I have seen it live in some other convenience brands, though.
Very cool. Thanks.
And I know you said one last question on that end, but I think in a previous, when you and I first met or started talking a couple of weeks ago, you told us about that you go out and visit the stores. It sounds like just one of the things I want to compliment you on is listening. You sound like you really get out there. And I think you were just coming back from a store visit or a multi-site visit, and also just listening to see what works, and just kind of common sense almost, it sounds like, decisions to innovate, just things that make processes work smoother or just lives easier, whether it is technology or, floor scrubbers. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I found you can learn a lot just by, going to the sites and just, obviously identify myself, and, I can just kind of talk and just chat up with the workers and just see, hey, what's on your mind? What's going on? What problems are you having? What's working well for you? And then just kind of going into the background and just observing, and man, you can learn a lot that way. And And then, I will add, it's interesting, I spent a lot of time, I think many of you here in the States probably know John Jackson. He's the founder, and his son Corey, who's the president of Jackson Food Stores. But when I go around with them, we get out of the car, we start walking towards the site. John and Corey are picking up trash, in the parking lot, just, trying to keep the site clean. We go inside, walking around, talking to people. He's always facing product, right? See something, go and fix it, or pull something forward. And so that rubs off. And I find myself doing that. Like I've been visiting a number of sites lately and go in and just walking around. I'm fixing product and pulling stuff forward and picking up trash in the parking lot. And so, it's really good example of leading by example, right? And we're all in this together, whether the technology person or finance person or whomever, we still can impact the science.
Well, and I think that's a really good example of, from a technology point of view, of coming up with technology to fix specific problems that you've discovered from being involved in the business, as opposed to having technology for technology's sake, where you've developed a program, but there's not, maybe you've got a solution and you're looking for a problem. You're approaching it from the point of view of being involved with the stores and pushing it forward, because you know what the problem is. And I think that, a lot of that also comes out from being able to analyze the data and the information that you get from the stores, which leads to coming up with progressive and positive solutions.
Yeah, data's huge for us. We built a data team, and as you guys all know, we're get millions of transactions, and so there's so much information that you can do with that data, and there's so many action points to it. It's really fascinating, and so our data team, focuses on that and sees how we can impact the business with it.
Robert, thanks for the overview and all that. And you, as you just mentioned, and Dave mentioned a few minutes ago, I mean, one of the key things about technology is helping employee productivity, employee efficiency at the store level. And I think I'm right in that you guys have been trying to do some self-checkout at your stores. How is that going, and what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, self-checkout for us, we've had it 18 months or so. Been using the product from Verifone, and here's an example. You see right there in the center, we've got 2 self-checkout units, C18s from Verifone. It works really well, and this is an earlier picture, but we've changed the sign where it says self-checkout. We have it now where it's age-restricted items is okay. So we're taking the alcohol transactions and the cigarette tobacco transactions through self-checkout. And that's going really well. There's a closer picture of the bagging area. That's the C18. And then there you can see that other sign on the right. That's one of the newer signs. That particular site has 3 self-checkouts. And what we do is we kind of sandwich them in between the regular registers. We make it a destination. And we're seeing anywhere from 30 to 40% of our transactions go through the self-checkout. And Roy, to your point about what I said earlier, it makes the cashiers more productive. It makes the customers more productive, as I alluded to, because if there's a line at the regular checkout, they can just simply go to the self-checkout and get in and out. Especially if you walk in, it's a busy time, you just want a bottle of water, you can walk up, scan, and leave. You can do your loyalty as well if you need, and out the door you go. And of course, like with most retailers doing self-checkout, you have the folks who are like, well, I don't want to see, my favorite cashier, lose their job, what have you. It hasn't been like that because we put in our signs in the window like help wanted. Like we're putting in self-checkout, but we're still looking for people because there's so many other things that they can do that help the customer, ensuring everything's stocked, things like that. And so helping people find things. So Roy, I think it's been a big success for us. It's going really well. And we're really pleased with it.
For this sake, this has been enlightening. And thank you so much, Robert, for telling us about Jackson's, introducing us there. I haven't had a chance to visit, but I'd love to get out west one of these days. So I'll give you a shout if I do get there. Well, thank you again, gentlemen, for being with me today. And thank you so much for joining us today on Shop Talk Live. Thank you for listening to Shop Talk Live, the podcast. This episode was produced by Dan Munford and Nick Scherzer with support from Jenna Ferguson and Lorraine Evans. It was produced, edited, and mixed by Carolyn Schnare, and music was provided by Wolfgang Worley. Tune in every other week for new episodes, and please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and learn more at globalconvenienceStoreFocus.co.uk.